International is a research, communications, and advocacy organization focused on exposing the true costs of fossil fuels and hastening our ongoing transition to a clean, climate-safe economy. We've written numerous reports outlining climate costs of various fossil fuel projects around the globe, and I'm honored to be here today with so many fighting Jordan Cove, as the analysis that we're releasing today shows that it is truly a climate disaster in the making. But before I get to the findings of today's report, I want to provide a brief bit of background on where we stand in our climate crisis. In September of 2016, we released a groundbreaking analysis called The Sky's Limit that provides the math behind the Keep It in the Ground movement. In that report, we found that the carbon underneath existing fossil fuel projects, if unearthed and burned, would take us past the climate limits that we as a globe have agreed to in the Paris Climate Agreement. In other words, we already have in active development more fossil fuels than we can afford to burn. So when we look at a project like Jordan Cove, we have to ask ourselves, does this project fit within a world in which we tackle the climate crisis? Our report today shows that for Jordan Cove and the Pacific Connector Pipeline, the answer is a resounding no. Today's analysis shows that the Jordan Cove project would be responsible for 36.8 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions annually. That's equivalent to 15 times, more than 15 times, the 2016 emissions from the Boardman coal plant, which Hannah mentioned earlier and is going to be retired by the end of 2020. That coal plant is going to be retired because of its emissions, because of the impact it has on our people and our climate. These emissions from the Jordan Cove project would also be equivalent to an additional 7.9 vehicles on our roads. These are massive numbers and clearly shows that the liquefied gas exported by this project would absolutely contribute to our climate crisis. And this project is completely out of sync with our efforts to address climate change. Something else that's really important is that our analysis shows that the assertions that liquefied gas exported by this project would not necessarily replace coal in the markets in Asia. A lot of proponents suggest that it would, and our analysis shows otherwise. Further, even if it did replace coal in those markets, our analysis shows that the gas would not provide a climate benefit in such a switch. These are important because the proponents really talk about this being something that really is going to try to benefit the climate, and our analysis simply shows that's not the case. Simply put, fossil gas has no role in addressing our climate crisis. Assertions that it does are based on outdated assumptions and optimistic projections that are not based in reality on the ground. Today's findings clearly show that the Jordan Cove project is out of sync with Oregon's own climate goals, not to mention global goals to limit global warming. We found that the full life cycle emissions of this project would equal more than 200% of the emissions Oregon hopes to be limited to under its own 75% reduction plan by 2050. But even if you look at only the in-state emissions associated with this project, those emissions would constitute an increasingly large proportion of the remaining allowable emissions under Oregon's global warming efforts, while providing no actual energy supply for the state. So in other words, Jordan Cove would be a climate disaster, plain and simple. Governor Brown should do what she can, and we know that she can do a lot to stop this project from being built in this state. Thank you.